Well, I think my goal is to help the audience be have an experience of transformation, meaning to become better than they were when they entered the theater, when they leave. Maybe help them reflect on their own lives, things going on in the world, issues that confront us every day that we have to struggle with, and maybe to have some better insight in how to deal with things going on. Good theater, I think, raises questions. It doesn't provide the answers. But those moments when you actually, kind of can feel something, they're few and I would even say sometimes far between in any given production. But they are so powerful that they're worth going to the theater to experience. I think one of the things that works really well is silence. Mm-hmm. And the power of silence and what's happening in the silence. And sometimes, we forget that. We think every moment must be filled with movement or sound. Silence actually / stillness. Mm-hmm. If done properly, those moments that that are not so poignant, or where there's not so much tension or feeling or whatever, I think the theater, those other moments are leading up to and pointing to and actually even maybe contributing to those moments. So a good show will, have a kind of a rhythm to it.
A lot of times the playwright will give you clues. They will tell you pretty specifically what emotion they were going for. So it's up to us as artists to interpret those so we can tell our story, weave our own fabric, not necessarily verbatim with the playwright, but he or she will give us clues as to what their intent was. The lighting design, I think, is the thing that accentuates the performance more than any other technical element. Mm-hmm. Back in its day, Casa sat around 1,850 patrons, and there wasn't really a bad seat playing it in the round because it only went back about 20 rows, 22 rows, something like that. So there were no nosebleed seats. It makes it much more intimate. The challenge, of course, is making 3D scenery that is see-through, so you can never have a hard set. Everything has to be see-through and pass-through, so you don't have sightline issues for your patrons.
It's very important to try to get the sense of what's written across, insofar as that's realistic. The design per se that's just really difficult to carry off. I mean, of course, if one writes that, one recognizes that that's a danger. So a lot of times you write yourself into a box, recognizing that someone's going to have to figure out how to do that. Sometimes, an obstacle could simply be interpretation, and then it's a question of, is it really an obstacle? The best thing for them is the very constraint of the stage. They picture stuff as if they're watching movies. And the stage is far more intimate than that. You have to actually be able to physically see and hear and, at the end of a play, smell the people on the stage. And it means this, people think of it as a diminution. You have to make your ideas smaller. You don't, of course. You just have to be able to say this situation has to be translatable to people who are physically in my presence.
Yes.
Because I've seen a lot of plays where I thought the writing was extraordinarily effective. It's often a question of how it comes across. And the reason it really worked was that it was meant to be the giant scene of the giant songs and the cannonades in the background. It would have completely overwhelmed anything that was subtle, but this was not a subtle part of this show. So you needed extravaganza and chaos, and you got it, and all this stuff on a very small West End stage. Not tiny, but nothing like Les Mis. And they took the space that they had, and the fire was just light, and an encroaching kind of redness that was creeping along the stage set and the characters during this climactic moment and song.
Together.
So there's kind of a saying that sound designers have is that there are two people who know about sound in a theater,
you, the sound designer, and everybody else, because everybody has an opinion about what the show should sound like. It's like if you can't understand it, you can't understand the deeper meaning. Usually I work in a sound design team with a acoustician and the music director to very much kind of talk about how the composer wanted the piece to come across and how the music feels to the audience and what the audience member who's sitting in the chair, how we can deliver, like a very sad feel or a rustic feel. You can use digital effects processors and mess around with different wavelengths of sound to kind of recreate the feel of, an older style recording. So you can take out certain frequencies from what the audience is going to hear coming through the speakers, and it gives it a sound that, recreates what would happen in a recording studio in the 20s, so it gives it kind of that classic, larger-than-life Broadway feel. So that's one way to do it, or if you're going for a real rock concert, punch, smash mouth, in your face kind of a loud show, you can custom design speaker cabinets. Or you can use a sound system from a concert to deliver a much louder kind of show. If the producer director is a little older, they'll want it to be a lot more loud because their hearing has gone down a little bit. And then the younger crowd always wants, more bass, modern feel, a lot more push to the show. And so it's always trying to find a balance. So sound design has gotten a lot more boutique-y over the past couple of years, and what I mean by that is for the really high-end productions, the sound system for the show, everything is completely customized for that production. And I think it's going to be even more so than that. For instance, right now, on your average national tour, you'll have about 200 speakers pointed out at the audience. And I suspect that number is going to grow and grow and grow, almost to the point to where there's, separate speakers for every, individual 5 seats, 3 seats, so that you can deliver a lot more precision, so that everybody can have a sound that they like. So that's kind of where it's going. And there's products hitting the market now that allow the audience to mix their own show. I don't think that'll really be a thing because it's a lot of work. I saw once, which won 9 Tony Awards, one of which happened to be Sound Design Tony Award, and that show is very quiet. The sound designer said, he wanted people to be leaning forward in their seat slightly as if to be able to hear it. Now they wanted the balance to be perfect, just to be really, really soft, almost completely acoustic with no mics or anything. I kind of understood the whole design logic of making people work to think, work to hear, because it makes them really have to think about what's happening in the show a little bit more.